The jazz band played softly notes slipping through the heavy scent of lilies. Gregory raised his glass, his smile cutting like a knife. To Ethan, he said his words slick as oil. To the man who paid for all this. Laughter rose sharp cold. Lila's smile was a lie. I tasted it in the air, bitter and sweet. I didn't flinch. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushed the USB cool and waiting. I'm Ethan, and this isn't just a wedding. Where are you listening from tonight? Subscribe to hear the full story because this USB doesn't lie. The sun dipped low over Whispering Pines Resort, painting the sky in copper and rose. I stood alone by the window, the glass cool against my forehead. Outside, the lake shimmered calm, perfect, a lie in motion. I remembered how Lila smiled when we first met in Portland. She had eyes like a storm, fierce, bright, impossible to ignore. She told me she loved how I didn't care about money or status, how I made her feel safe, like she could be herself. For a while, I believed it. I believed every soft word, every stolen glance. I didn't see the cracks in her family's perfect image. I didn't hear the cold edge in Gregory's voice when he shook my hand for the first time. He smelled of expensive cologne and power, a scent that clung to him like a shadow. I thought I could earn his respect if I worked hard enough. I thought money and status didn't matter as long as love was real. So I worked late nights, took every gig I could find. I traded sleep for code dollars for promises, all for Lila. But when it came time to plan the wedding, her family's silence was louder than any refusal. Gregory said, "If you want to play Prince Charming, pay the royal bill." Lila looked down at her phone, her lips tight. Not a word in my defense. I should have seen it then, how they saw me as a means to an end. How every soft smile was a transaction. The scent of lilies still filled the air, thick and cloying. I couldn't escape it, or the taste of betrayal that came with every breath. The wedding plans grew like ivy twisting around me until I couldn't breathe. Lila wanted a destination ceremony, a perfect stage, she said. Whispering Pines was hers, not mine. She chose everything, the dress, the music, the menu. I just signed the checks. I told myself I was doing it for her, for us. But each decision felt like another brick in a wall between us. At family dinners, Gregory wouldn't look at me. He'd pour his bourbon talk business with everyone else. Lila would smile, slip her hand into mine under the table, a cold comfort that felt rehearsed. I tried to believe her. I told myself love meant compromise. But I was the only one compromising. The night before the wedding, I lay awake in our suite. I could hear the lake outside, water lapping against the docks. Steady, patient. Lila slept beside me, her breath soft and even. I turned and watched her in the dim light, the curve of her shoulder, the ring on her finger. I wanted to believe that ring meant something more than a contract. I wanted to believe the vows would heal the cracks. But deep down, I knew better. I felt it in the way she turned away when I touched her. In the way she never looked at me when she thought I was watching. I remembered how she laughed with her family, how they all laughed at me. The scent of lilies, sweet and heavy, pressed down on my chest. I closed my eyes and tried to picture a future. Any future that didn't taste like regret. Outside, the water moved, calm and endless. I wondered if I'd ever feel that stillness inside me again. The night of the rehearsal dinner, everything changed. I stood by the bar watching Lila's family move like royalty. Gregory laughed too loud, his voice thick with whiskey and triumph. I heard my name slip from his mouth, followed by a snort. I turned away, pretending not to notice. Jared clapped me on the back. "Don't let him get to you, man," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. The jazz band played something slow, something sweet, but the music felt wrong. I saw Lila slip outside, her phone clutched tight in her hand. The air smelled of rain, fresh and sharp. I followed, my feet silent on the stone path. She leaned against a pillar, her voice low, her laughter soft. I stopped in the shadows and listened. "Don't worry," she said, her tone almost tender. "He thinks this is forever, but it's just a stepping stone." I felt my throat tighten, the air too thin to breathe. She laughed again, that soft, secret laugh I thought was mine. I turned and walked away, my heart beat loud in my ears. Back inside, everything was bright and warm. Gregory raised his glass again, another toast to my money, my blind devotion. I took my seat beside Lila, my hands cold and clammy. She leaned close, her perfume, a sweet poison in my lungs. "I love you," she whispered. The words felt empty, a rehearsed line in a play I never auditioned for. I smiled, but inside something cracked. The music played on, the laughter rolled over me like thunder. I knew then I was alone in a room full of people who would never see me. I reached for my drink, the glass slick and cool in my hand. The weight of the USB in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I wouldn't let them write my story. Not tonight, not ever. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The soft hum of the air conditioner, the rustle of silk sheets. Every sound grated against my nerves. Beside me, Lila breathed, steady lips parted in a dream I wasn't part of. I slipped out of bed, my feet cold on the hardwood floor. The sweet smelled of lavender and money like everything she touched. At the small desk, I opened my laptop. I was a security consultant, passwords, firewalls, encryption. But tonight I used my skills for something else. I took Lila's phone, her birth year, still her passcode predictable. In minutes, I mirrored every file, every text, every hidden app. I told myself it was only to ease my mind. But I already knew what I'd find. Photos, Lila, her hand in Marcus's hair, his lips on her neck. Messages, "He's just a paycheck, babe," she wrote. My stomach turned bile rising in my throat. I scrolled each word like a slap to my pride. Gregory, 2 emails between him and Marcus. Spreadsheets of my bank accounts, plans for my future, like I wasn't there. They didn't just want my money, they wanted to gut me slowly. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I turned to Lila, still sleeping, the moonlight silver on her skin. I wondered if she ever thought about me or just the security I gave her. I saved every file, every photo, every line of betrayal. My hand trembled as I closed the laptop, my chest a hollow drum. Outside, the lake was black glass under the night sky. I felt something shift inside me, a final crack. I knew what I had to do, and this time I wouldn't ask for anyone's permission. The next morning, the sky was washed in pale gold. I watched the sunrise from the balcony, my breath ghosting in the cool air. Inside, Lila hummed as she zipped up her dress, a song I used to think was ours. She didn't know what I had found. Or maybe she didn't care. We met Gregory in the dining hall for breakfast. He sipped his coffee, eyes fixed on me like a challenge. "You ready for the big day, Ethan?" he asked. His voice was smooth, but the edge was there, the taunt he thought I didn't hear. I nodded, the weight of the USB a silent bow in my pocket. Lila reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. A perfect wife in front of the guests, in front of the world. But I knew the truth. I tasted it in the bitterness of my coffee, smelled it in the cloying perfume she wore. I saw it in the way her smile faltered when she thought I wasn't looking. Jared joined us, his handshake firm, his eyes careful. "Big day," he said. His voice was too bright, too easy. I remembered the night before, the guilt in his eyes as he said, "It's just business." He was part of it. All of them were. I let them talk about flowers, about seating charts, about everything but the lies. My mind was somewhere else, in the cold light of that laptop screen, in the promise I had made to myself. Outside, the lake glimmered so calm it looked like glass. But underneath, I knew there were currents waiting to drag them all down. I didn't say a word as Gregory toasted the wedding again. I just smiled, the same smile they expected. But inside, I was done playing their game. Today was my day too, and I would make sure they never forgot it. The afternoon sun baked the patio in warm light, but I felt cold to my bones. The final preparations swirled around me, flowers in tall vases, silverware gleaming. Lila moved through the crowd like a queen, her laughter light, her hand resting on my arm. But her touch felt like ice. Jared leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear. "You sure you're okay, man?" he asked, voice tight. I nodded, but my hands clenched in my pockets, fingers brushing the USB, my quiet secret. I saw the photographer's flash, the swirl of white lilies in every corner. I tasted the salt of my own sweat, my throat dry. Gregory watched me with that same smug calm, like he owned the air I breathed. I knew what they planned, to break me down, to take everything and leave me with nothing. But they didn't know what I held. They didn't know the night I spent digging through the lies they thought buried. When the final toast began, Gregory's voice filled the air, smooth, confident. "To my son-in-law," he said, pausing, letting the words hang. "May he always remember, family first." The crowd laughed, the sound like glass breaking in my head. Lila's eyes met mine, wide, shining, empty. I let the laughter roll over me, each wave stripping away the last pieces of hope. I wouldn't be their fool not anymore. I wouldn't let their story be the only one told. I reached into my jacket, feeling the small weight of the USB cool solid true. Outside, the wind shifted the scent of lilies twisting with the tang of the lake. I took a breath, the taste of betrayal sharp on my tongue. I wouldn't flinch. I wouldn't break. And when I took the stage, I would make sure every single one of them knew the truth. That night I sat in the darkness of our suite, the lake whispering outside. Lila lay beside me, her breath, even her hand resting on my chest. But I didn't feel her touch. I felt the weight of the USB in my pocket. I thought about every lie, every half smile, every time she turned her eyes away. I thought about Gregory's laughter, about Jared's silence, about how they all thought I'd never see through them. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and cold water. I breathed it in sharp, clean reel. I rose from the bed, my feet silent on the wooden floor. The window was open a crack, letting in the night air. I stood there staring at the water, feeling the cool breeze on my skin. I could have walked away. I could have left them all behind and let them think I was weak. But something in me hardened a quiet promise that I wouldn't let them win. I remembered the first time I saw Lila smile, how it felt like sunlight on my face, how I thought that smile meant forever. Now I saw it for what it was, a mask, a tool, a weapon. I turned back to the room, to the sleeping woman I thought I knew. I picked up the USB, turning it over in my hand. It was small, just a piece of plastic and metal, but inside it I held everything they'd tried to bury. I thought about what would happen when I showed them. The chaos, the shame, the end of everything they thought was safe. My heart thudded steady and calm. I knew this was the moment, the point of no return. I wouldn't be the fool at their table anymore. I wouldn't be the silent son-in-law, the open wallet, the stepping stone. I was done. I took one last look at Lila, her face soft in sleep, and turned away. Outside, the lake was dark and endless, a mirror of the night sky. I felt the wind on my face, cold and clean, like the truth I was about to bring into the light. I slipped the USB back into my pocket. Tomorrow they would hear me. Tomorrow they would see everything they tried to hide. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't scream. I would show them, and I would walk away without a single glance back. Morning light spilled through the curtains, golden and bright. I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection calm, measured. The tailored suit fit me like armor, the tie a noose I wore by choice. Lila hummed as she adjusted her hair, her perfume sweet and heavy in the air. Ready, she asked, her smile soft, practiced. More than ready, I said, my voice even. She didn't hear the edge beneath it. Downstairs, the ballroom gleamed, gold chairs, white lilies, crystal glasses. I could taste the sharp tang of champagne in the air. Gregory moved through the crowd, his laughter low and easy. Jared hovered at his side, his eyes flicking to me, then away. I saw the way the servers moved, the careful perfection of each plate. I felt the USB in my pocket, small, solid, a quiet promise. I had spent the morning checking every detail. The projector connected. The AV system tuned to my exact settings. Security, two men I trusted, standing silent at the back of the room. They knew their job, keep Gregory from cutting me off when I spoke. I thought of the files on the USB, the photos, the messages, the bank statements. Proof laid bare. I didn't want to destroy them for sport. I wanted the truth to be seen, to be undeniable. I walked through the ballroom, each step measured, each breath steady. Lila's dress shimmered under the lights, her eyes bright and distant. She leaned close, her voice a whisper. Thank you for making this day perfect. I didn't flinch. It's not over yet, I said. The band played a soft tune, the melody winding through the clink of glasses and hushed voices. I watched them all, the guests, the family, the ones who thought they were untouchable. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. Today they would learn I wasn't the fool they thought I was. I watched Gregory stand, his glass raised high, his voice smooth as silk. He smiled at the crowd, his words dripping with false warmth. To Ethan, he said, pausing for effect. To the man who gave us this night, may he always remember where he stands. Laughter rippled through the room, sharp echoing. I felt it cut through me, but I didn't let it show. I rose from my seat, slow and calm, my heartbeat a steady drum. I walked to the stage, each step measured, deliberate. Gregory's smile flickered a flash of something behind his eyes. I took the microphone from his hand, my fingers cool on the metal. "Thank you, Gregory," I said, my voice clear, steady. The room hushed, every eye on me. Outside, I could hear the soft rustle of the lake breeze through the windows. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing the USB solid reel. "I'd like to share something," I said, holding the small drive between two fingers. A murmur swept the crowd, curiosity and confusion. Lila shifted in her seat, her smile cracking at the edges. Jared looked down, his jaw tight. I walked to the projector, the screen waiting. My hands were steady as I plugged the USB into the port. The room held its breath. I turned back to the guests, my voice calm, cold. "I've spent the last year learning about trust and betrayal," I said. The first image flickered to life, a photo of Lila and Marcus laughing in a hotel room. Gasps broke the silence, sharp, sudden. More images followed, messages, receipts, secrets they thought buried. The air tasted like metal, hot and sharp on my tongue. Gregory's face turned pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Lila's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide and wet. Jared looked away, his shoulders stiff. I stood there, the projector humming softly behind me. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. I let the truth fill the room, cold and bright as the morning sun. The images rolled on each one, a nail in the coffin of their lies. Laughter turned to whispers, then to stunned silence. I watched their faces, shock, shame, disbelief. Lila's hands trembled as she tried to speak, her voice a choked whisper. "Ethan, please." But I didn't hear her. I turned to Gregory, his face white, his hands clenching the arms of his chair. "You thought I wouldn't find out," I said, my voice low. "You thought you could buy my silence." The jazz band had stopped playing, even the music couldn't cover the truth. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, a hollow moan in the quiet room. I took a breath, the scent of lilies thick in the air, sweet and rotting. "I didn't come here to play the fool," I said. "I came to show you what you are." I felt the weight of every eye on me, every breath held. Gregory stood, his voice a snarl. "Security, get him out." But the two men at the back of the room didn't move. They were mine, not his. Lila rose, tears streaking her perfect makeup. "Ethan, stop, please." I looked at her, really looked. The woman I thought I loved, the woman who chose comfort over truth. "I'm done, Lila," I said. I turned to the guests, my voice steady, calm. "This is who they are," I said. "This is who I was until now." I pulled the USB from the projector, the final act in a story they never saw coming. I left the stage without another word, my steps sure, my head high. Behind me, the room was chaos, voices raised, chairs scraping, the crash of a glass hitting the floor. I didn't look back. I walked out into the cool night air, the scent of pine and rain washing over me. I felt the weight lift from my shoulders, the truth finally spoken. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The cold air cut through my suit as I stepped outside. I breathed in the night, sharp and clean, washing away the taste of lies. Behind me, the ballroom roared, raised voices, broken glass, the brittle collapse of a perfect facade. I didn't flinch. I walked past the valet stand, my footsteps sure on the stone path. The lake stretched out before me, black and endless under the stars. I paused, letting the wind whip through my hair, the scent of pine and rain filling my lungs. For a moment, I felt weightless, the chains of their expectations slipping away. Inside, I knew Gregory raged, his voice tearing through the crowd. Lila's tears wouldn't save her, not this time. Jared's silence couldn't hide his betrayal. I let them all have their chaos. It didn't belong to me anymore. I walked to my car, the engine already humming, warm and waiting. The USB sat in my pocket, still and quiet. I ran my thumb over it, a reminder of the truth I carried. The headlights lit the winding road ahead, the darkness deep and inviting. I didn't hesitate. I pulled away from the resort tires crunching over gravel. In the rearview mirror, the lights of the ballroom flickered, a dying star in the distance. I turned the wheel, feeling the smooth leather against my palms. The road curved away from the lake, away from the lies. Each mile felt like a breath I hadn't taken in years. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. The wind whistled through the cracked window, the cold air a balm on my skin. I thought of Lila's face, the tears, the shock, the fear. I thought of Gregory's toast, the smirk he wore like armor. I thought of the boy I'd been so desperate to belong. I wasn't that boy anymore. The road unspooled in front of me, dark and endless. I let it carry me forward, each turn a promise. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their forgiveness. I had my truth, and that was enough. And as the miles fell away behind me, I felt something new settle in my chest, a calm, cold, and clear. Morning broke soft and silver as I reached the city limits. The sun rose over the skyline, painting steel and glass with pale light. I parked the car near the waterfront, the air sharp with salt and cold. I stepped out, the wind tugging at my jacket, my breath steaming in the dawn. I stood there for a long moment, letting the city noise wash over me. Car horns, gulls crying, the rush of water against concrete. I felt every heartbeat, every breath. For the first time, I felt alive. I took out my phone and opened my email. I sent copies of the files, the photos, the messages, the bank records to every vendor who'd worked the wedding. Florists, photographers, caterers, every name tied to that day. I wanted them to know the truth of the night they'd helped create. I wanted them to see the betrayal behind the perfect white linens and the music. When I was done, I leaned against the railing, the USB cool in my hand. I thought of Gregory, of Lila, of the empire they'd built on lies. I thought of how it all crumbled in a single night. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel rage. I felt clean. The city woke around me, the air alive with possibility. I slipped the USB into my coat pocket and turned away from the water. I had work to do, a life to build free from their poison. I wouldn't waste another breath on them. As I walked down the street, the world felt new under my feet, each step a quiet vow. I wouldn't let them write my story. I wouldn't let them steal my name. I was done explaining, done apologizing, done trying to fit into places I never belonged. The morning sun rose higher, warm on my face. I let it fill me, let it wash away the last shadows of that night. I knew there would be whispers, stories, rumors. I knew they'd try to twist what happened, but the truth didn't need defending. It stood on its own, bright, unshakable, and so did I. I turned the corner and didn't look back. I walked on the city opening before me, wide and waiting. I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't need their love. I had something better. I had my freedom, and I would never give it back. Months later, the world moved on. The headlines faded, the whispers quieted, but I never forgot. I built a new life brick by careful brick, a life of my own making. I launched my own firm, one small office, at first just me and a desk. The first contracts came slow, but they came. People respected my work, my resolve. They didn't care about the scandal, they cared about the results. Each day felt like a promise to myself. Each deal signed, each firewall, built proof that I could stand on my own. I hired a team, smart, hungry, loyal. We grew fast the way honest work always does. In quiet moments, I thought of Lila, of Gregory, of the laughter that once filled that ballroom. But I didn't dwell on it. I had nothing left to say to them. They were a chapter, nothing more. One morning, a letter arrived from Lila. No apology, no excuses, just 2 words. I'm sorry. I read it once, then again. Then I tossed it in the trash. I didn't need her regret. I didn't need her voice in my head. I had my own. I stood on the balcony of my new office, the city alive around me. I watched the river move below, calm and steady, the sun warm on my face. I thought of the man I used to be, the man who begged for approval at someone else's table. He was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who didn't bend for anyone. I turned back to my desk, to the quiet hum of possibility. I didn't need their legacy. I was building my own. And for the first time, I felt free, truly free. Where are you listening from tonight? Subscribe for more true stories of betrayal and the quiet power of walking away.